Hello, everybody. Today, I'm super excited to meet with Kaitlin, who is a member of the Beyond Birthing Signature Program. Kaitlin is a second-time mom, and she's accepted to share her story with us today. Hi, Kaitlin. Thanks so much for meeting with me.
Hi, Sophie. Thanks for having me.
So can you tell us why did you decide to join the Beyond Birthing Signature Program in the first place?
I decided to join the Beyond Birthing program because, well, I met you initially after the recovery from my first birth. That I had a really traumatic first birth. I was a really complicated delivery that lasted for 72 hours. It ended with the episiotomy and forceps delivery. And so I needed pelvic floor physiotherapy for many months to recover from the first birth. And I didn't know about your program at that time. But when I became pregnant with my second baby, I decided I really wanted to prepare for this birth in a much different way than I did for my first. One, I wanted to empower myself and educate myself as much as possible. And two, obviously, I would like to have avoided a repeat of the first scenario. And I learned about your program. I had seen some pamphlets in your office after the first time I did pelvic floor physiotherapy with you, but especially as I was going to my different prenatal appointments for the second pregnancy, I kept seeing your flyer and I said, you know what, I think I need to reach out and just try to prepare for the birth. And I was so glad that I did because it just made the world of difference for this second pregnancy and delivery.
Can you share more about your second experience and how the program impacted your birth and recovery?
Well, one thing I really liked about doing the program for the second pregnancy was when I was able to educate my husband as well about all the different stages of birth preparation and just the different things he could do to help me during the delivery, because I know he felt pretty helpless the first time around since it was so complicated. But the nice part about this program is that we could watch the different modules separately or together, depending on our availability. And then we could just talk about how we wanted to prepare for the birth. And I like that the module was really broken down stage by stage, depending on what trimester of pregnancy you're in or what symptoms you're experiencing. And so it was nice that the program had so many different facets to it. And apart from just week by week, what types of preparation you were supposed to be doing, I had a lot of back pain and pelvic pain, like sacroiliac joint pain and pubic symphysis pain. And it was really nice. There was an entire unit in the module that was all about symptom management. So depending on whatever your specific pain was, there were exercises or preparations you could do to target that issue. And it was just amazing how, even though I'd already given birth before, there were so many things I learned new about pregnancy through the module. Because, the first time around, I was a first time mom and I didn't really know the right questions to ask. It was a pandemic, so there weren't a lot of services being offered in terms of prenatal supports in the community. So it was just amazing. It was so neat to hear about how your baby was going to position or what positions you could do in the program in order to help encourage your baby to get into the right position, hoping to encourage a smoother delivery, which was really great. Like doing the inverted sort of plank that you would do every day to help encourage your baby to drop. And yeah, so all those different aspects were really great because you could just, instead of an overwhelming amount of knowledge in one night, you could watch it week by week. And that way it was knowledge you could retain and recollect a lot easier.
That's amazing. And can you share a bit more about your second birth experience and the results you got from the program?
Sure. Well, originally, another reason I wanted to do this program is I wanted to prepare for any type of birth, no matter what would happen, because there were so many things that were unexpected with my first birth, and a lot of things were just out of my control. So this time I had originally planned to have a cesarean because I didn't want to go through the trauma of another birth where there was a possibility that my child wasn't going to make it through delivery like it did the first time. And thankfully he was born healthy, but it got very dangerous at the end. So originally I had my head set on having a cesarean, and in your program there was a whole unit about how to prepare for a planned cesarean, which was really great. But I also know that things don't always go according to plan. So I wanted to prepare for a natural birth if that was what ended up happening. And I'm really glad that I did, because in the end, I canceled my planned cesarean 3 days before I gave birth, because I was just having a difficult time with my toddler. And I knew there was just no way I could care for his needs while also recovering from major surgery and an infant. So in the end, I canceled the cesarean, but I still didn't want to be pregnant anymore. So I asked to have an induction performed on the day that I was originally supposed to have the cesarean. So they did a balloon induction for me to encourage dilation. And after that, I was admitted to the hospital probably about 9 hours after the balloon was inserted. And they gave me some misoprostol medication to help encourage the contractions to begin. And those started within about 2 minutes after the pill was administered. So it was really quick. And my husband was at home because he had a bit of a flu that he was recovering from. And they said not to expect anything until the next morning. So I thought it was going to be a slow process, but the contractions were about every 2 minutes after the pill started. So I think it was about 8:40 p.m. I started contractions. And then after an hour and a half, I told my husband he had to get to the hospital now because things were just progressing quickly. And that's when we were able to actually practice a lot of the natural pain management techniques that we learned in the Beyond Birthing program. So some of our favorites were like the double hip squeeze. A lot of counter pressure techniques were used with my husband applying pressure with his hands against the back of my sacrum. We were using a lot of the exercise balls and laboring on hands and knees on like the support person bed. So my husband was behind me, or my doula was there as well. So they were just taking turns practicing the different pain management techniques, which was really amazing because I felt the contractions, and yes, they were painful, but I also felt like they were a real guiding force, and I could actually feel my baby start to move lower in the birth canal. Wow. Which was fantastic. And the pain management techniques, they didn't take the pain away, but they made the contractions a lot more bearable. And we used almost every single position we learned in the Beyond Birthing program. So we weren't really in one static pose. I wasn't lying on my back. I would go from doing squats, I would be on my knees, we'd be bouncing on the fitness ball. We would just move around constantly and practicing everything that we had learned in the program and had practiced week by week so that we were prepared. Because labor and birth can be quite an overwhelming experience. So if we had not practiced or had not learned, you probably would have had a hard time just recollecting what it is that we use. So it was really nice that in the program, there were a lot of the modules which you could just open at any time. And so, yeah, I think that I started contractions about 8:40 p.m. And then I think she was born at 1:03 a.m. the next night. So it was quite quick. And she was out in 4 pushes. It was so fast. It was unbelievable.
How was the pushing stage?
Oh, the pushing stage came very fast. I remember I went from feeling labor contractions to all of a sudden feeling that urge to push in a very intense way. And I did not have an epidural. I think I had just one shot of morphine in the hip a couple hours ago that had long since faded. And I tried the oxygen, but it didn't take off any type of the nitrous oxide.
The laughing gas.
Yes, the laughing gas. It didn't take away any pain, but it reminded me to breathe in a correct way. So because I didn't use an epidural, I was able to move around the room as I needed. And one thing I really learned in your birth prep program that helped me plan to prevent any kind of tearing was to try to push on your hands and knees. So I remember that I felt the sudden urge to push, and then the nurses and doctors were saying, "Get on the bed right now." And so I went in the bed, and then they had me lay on my back, and I said, "No, I want to push on my hands and knees." So they helped me spin over, one on my hands and knees, and 4 pushes, she was out.
Wow.
And it was so fast. It took me by surprise to the point where I was kind of in shock when she was born. And it was just the most incredible experience of my life. I think that especially the first birth was so fraught with fear and tension and lasting pelvic floor injuries afterwards that I just had so much anxiety leading up to this birth. It took me a long time to even consider having another baby. And I just felt so confident and so supported after going through this program because I kind of knew what to expect. I was able to trust my body again. And I just felt like it was just such an amazing wealth of knowledge about all the different options you had. It wasn't a rigid structure. It was just saying, hey, here, if this is what happens to you, this is how you can plan for this birth. Or if you're having cesarean, here's what you can expect. And here's the types of items you should bring to the hospital. It was just nice to know that you could prepare for any scenario, no matter what happened. And I just loved it. I loved the program. And it just really, I remember being in labor with the second birth, and I was like, this is such a primal experience. It just felt so connected and so in tune with what was going on with my body, and just knowing as I felt the changes happening in my body, knowing exactly what that meant. And it was just such a wonderful experience. I just felt so healed from my first trauma. It was
Wow.
just, it was amazing.
It's as if you healed from your first birth with your second birth.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. That's
Oh
totally
my
how,
God.
yeah.
It's so beautiful and empowering. And I think a lot of moms who had a first traumatic birth will be inspired by your story, because I think there's a lot of, yeah, anxiety and fear that it's gonna happen again, right?
Yes.
Um, and so following that, how was your recovery in comparison to your first?
Well, my first, I had the episiotomy and forceps delivery, so that took a very, very long time to heal from. I know that they said it's supposed to be like 6 week checkup. You're supposed to be healed, but I remember I did an 8 week checkup and I still wasn't healed, and it took me months of pelvic floor physiotherapy to get back to sort of a physical baseline. Whereas this birth, the second birth, I remember they just gave me some pain medications right after I gave birth, but I only had two very minor skin tears. That was it. I didn't need any more pain medication after that initial dose of Tylenol. I didn't need to use any more ice packs after the first one that they gave me. I was standing and having a shower 20 minutes after I gave birth, and 20 minutes after I gave birth. It just was like, it didn't even feel like I had a baby. It was just night and day, because I remember I just couldn't even sit after having my first birth because I was in so much pain. Whereas this time, my body, although I wouldn't advise running a marathon after having a baby, I felt like I could. Like, it just, all of the different preparations we had done with the birth program really paid off. Between just taking your time, making sure to do your pelvic floor strengthening exercises, doing the stretching of the birth canal, the weeks beforehand, making sure that you're doing everything you can to encourage baby to be in the right position, really made the difference. And admittedly, it was my second birth, so typically that's a lot easier than the first. But the majority of the reason it went so well is because we just practiced everything that we learned in the program. And it was just such a relief to know that it was all worth it, and I would highly recommend it to any expecting parents who are trying to sort of navigate the uncertain waters that come with pregnancy and labor and delivery. It really is such a great way to educate yourself and empower yourself.
Thank you so much. That's an amazing testimonial. Um, and I had another question for you. How many months postpartum are you now?
I am 4.5 months
Four and
postpartum.
a half.
Yes.
And would
Yep.
you say that you're back to pretty much like what you were doing before, like in terms of your recovery goals? I know when you joined the program, you were mentioning about like wanting to go back to exercising and that kind of stuff. So where are you at on that end?
I'm almost back at what I need to be. And it's not necessarily the program's limitations. It's just that I have a very colicky baby who
Mm.
is so willing to be apart from mommy. But that said, I'm able to do long walks now. It took me a while to get to that point, but I can go for hour-long walks now. I can do some sort of easier on the body intensity workouts. Like there's an incline mountain climber um, exercise that you taught me that I'm able to do. And that way I can still protect my pelvic floor, but do sort of a higher intensity exercise. I can do some longer planks, and there was no diastasis recti or anything like that. So all those different abdominal strengthening exercises and pelvic floor strengthening exercises that we've done postpartum have really helped me get back to sort of the baseline I was before I got pregnant with this second baby. And that's been really nice that the Beyond Birthing program laid it out week by week. So you could just do a gentle, gradual reintroduction to physical activity while still making sure that you take your time, don't rush, listen to your body, and not expose yourself to unnecessary injury. And I was very keen to avoid that, especially after the first experience. So it was nice that it's just all neatly laid out, and it just reminds you that, it's not, you don't have to rush back into anything. There's no such thing as bounce back culture. It's just take the time to sort of let your body rest and acknowledge the amazing transformation you just went through, but helping you slowly get back to the point where you can reintroduce the more intense physical activity.
Amazing. Kaitlin,
Yes.
thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I so appreciate, and yeah, it'll be nice to continue working with you through the program if there's any need later on.
Thank you so much, Sophie, and you have a great night.
Bye.